It seems a given that media outlets work to report the facts, but some of them in China may not be following that rule. State-run news outlets in the country may not always be showing the big picture, while accusations blame them for getting creative in their reports. Incidents range from what look like pre-planned random interviews to arranging sets and using props. In this special report, we look at cases where Beijing's picture-perfect news coverage may have slipped up, revealing a behind-the-scenes look at what some call fabricated news coverage. Media outlets around the world operate under one purpose: to spread information. Most seek to educate, entertain, and inform their audiences about what's happening. That task may seem straightforward: to provide factual, up-to-date details free of bias. But there's another goal on the table for a handful of those outlets: to convince or influence their viewers in a certain direction. In this special report, we zero in on what's now described as fake news, a term that's been making U.S. headlines for months, but in some places actually runs much deeper than many may realize. In China, a number of major media outlets are vocal about what they call a zero-tolerance policy for supposed fake news. One of them is the Global Times, a state-run tabloid that operates under the country's largest newspaper group, People's Daily. Known for its pro-China nationalism, the outlet has been quick to denounce other media and even other countries for spreading alleged fake news. But an annual report from Reporters Without Borders may contradict its zero-tolerance claim and similar statements from other state-backed Chinese news sources. The World Press Freedom Index measures the level of freedom journalists enjoy in different countries. This year, it ranked China nearly dead last, coming in at 177 out of 180 countries globally. Let's look at a video that seems to suggest some major questions about the coverage put out by Chinese media. This clip captures a reporter from the Chinese regime's central broadcaster CCTV doing a street interview. Take a look. In it, the CCTV reporter was covering the local situation after an earthquake in China's Sichuan province. At first glance, she seems to pick out a random person from a line of people to interview. But taking a closer look, the boy she interviewed appears to have been pre-selected. He's first seen standing in line. As the reporter nears him, she hadn't finished talking yet, so she passes him and continues down the line of people. The boy takes notice, seemingly realizing he was too far ahead and in the wrong position in line. He's then seen leaving his place in line to one further back. But again, he miscalculates. The reporter reaches him again, but is still not done speaking. She keeps walking, and he again moves further back in line. When she finally stops, she appears to pick him out of the crowd to interview. If the interview was in fact predetermined, it begs the question, was his response prearranged too? In Communist China, the apparent staging of news coverage is believed to be commonplace, especially when it comes to news reports about high-level Chinese Communist Party officials traveling to towns or cities outside Beijing. Whenever a top official pays local residents a visit, the coverage appears to follow a pattern. First, the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP official, arrives in a given city or county, often in a relatively good-looking area. Then he asks locals about how they're doing or their quality of life. They respond, without exception, by explaining that everything is great. The official then replies that they are very glad the locals are doing well. That's generally how things work with these kind of visits. That is, if everything goes according to plan. But as expected, there have been times when they haven't. And some of them have been caught on tape. One instance happened last March, amid pandemic-driven lockdowns in Wuhan City. That's when Chinese Communist Party Vice Premier Sun Chunlan conducted a supposed inspection of a local district there. The purpose of her visit was to check on residents. But according to some, the endeavor was merely posture. As the vice premier walked through the district, some locals could be heard collectively shouting from their windows, "It's fake. Everything's fake." At the time, one resident told NTD that everything officials saw during their inspection had been cherry-picked. While a netizen wrote on social media that to keep up appearances, officials reportedly chose people to act as volunteers, pretending to deliver food to residents amid the lockdown. The netizen added that the vice premier had to cut her inspection short and leave the district because of the commotion residents were making. Of course, it's not just the CCP's vice premier making these trips. Both CCP head Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang have taken part in what have been called orchestrated local visits, and some of them had apparent blunders too. Let's take a look at another example from 2020. In March last year, Xi Jinping paid a visit to Wuhan amid the lockdowns. He traveled there shortly after the vice premier's visit. The trip marked Xi's first outing to a local city since the outbreak began. Chinese state-run media reported that the visit was to express his regards to frontline workers, community staff, and residents. Media coverage of the occasion shows him receiving plenty of fanfare. At one point, the camera pans to residents inside their buildings, shouting greetings towards Xi Jinping from their windows. But was this enthusiastic welcome genuine? Looking at social media posts from that time, many locals shared that they were actually blocked from watching the official visit. One social media post explained that in their building, police had come to monitor every residential unit, guarding people's balconies to prevent them from approaching or shouting during Xi's visit. Another post described that police are already sitting on my balcony, stopping us from watching. Other posts describe similar situations. One netizen wrote that 2 police officers had been sent to their co-workers' home to keep an eye on them. There, the officers supposedly instructed them to shout spirited greetings towards Xi Jinping, but threatened to arrest them if they yelled anything else. One clip also captured a group of locals while in the middle of shouting out greetings to Xi. It too seems to suggest authorities gave them instructions for their participation. The video shows 2 locals waiting inside their home for Xi Jinping to step off his bus. As Xi came out, the 2 of them can be heard repeatedly asking someone, "Can we shout now?" The examples don't stop there. Besides authorities' visits, a number of other seemingly staged media campaigns have circulated throughout the country. In this video, we see authorities filming footage of Chinese police sweeping litter off the street. On the surface, the clip looks to show how hardworking the officials are and their efforts to improve the area. But the situation may not really be what it seems. At the beginning of the video, one person can be seen throwing a piece of garbage she's holding onto the ground. If she were really sweeping litter off the street, wouldn't tossing it back be counterproductive? Other footage captures similar effects. Here, authorities are filming public servants as they sweep flood or rainwater out of the street. Again, it seems to document the caring nature of Chinese authorities. But where exactly is the rainwater coming from? A nearby fire hose. There's more. In this video, a reporter is filming Chinese police as they supposedly help push a broken-down van through a flooded street. But here's the twist. The van is actually fully functional. Let's take a look at the video from the beginning. In the full version of the clip, an officer is seen standing beside a reporter before pulling over the otherwise working vehicle. He arranges the scene, calling over 2 yellow-vested officers. And when the camera starts rolling, they push it for the reporter to film. And in another video, an officer is seen just having finished pushing a person in a wheelchair across an intersection. The twist? The seemingly wheelchair-bound person can stand on his own. That's not the only photo called into question either. But in other cases, the truth is seemingly revealed not through behind-the-scenes clips, but by photo editing mishaps. In a number of incidents, apparently doctored photos, widely described as disastrous and rather amusing, have been shared online. At first touted by CCP officials as genuine, many are later taken down after they failed to pass public scrutiny. For example, this photo. UK-based media The Guardian said it may well be one of the worst doctored photographs in internet history. So what's the story behind it? At the time, a new road had recently been built in a county inside China's Sichuan province. The image was supposed to show a trio of officials inspecting the newly constructed street. Despite the clear doctoring, the photo went up on the county's official government website. But Chinese netizens weren't fooled. Calls started flowing into the county's public relations office, while parodies appeared online, commenting on the fact that the men in the picture seemed to be floating above the ground. As for the claim made by tabloid newspaper The Global Times, its so-called zero-tolerance policy for fake news may not really hold up, and the same seems to apply in many areas of Chinese state media coverage. So why go through all the trouble? The situation is widely believed to boil down to one thing: reputation. Staged news coverage, selected videos, and doctored photos could grant the Chinese regime a tighter grip on its public image and allow it to make sure that image remains a favorable one.
但是一些这个地方都要出现一些弯曲的东西，像人造特别比较是比较。